Viraj is a single father of a 6-year-old girl with cystic fibrosis. Mahi somehow convinces him to recite her missing mother's story. This leads to many revelations they're not prepared for. A young woman wants to sing a special song for the crowd. As she sings, Viraj is hard at work as a professional photographer. Viraj's friend Justin wonders why he is spoiling his relations with a big company. Their shoot is next month, but Viraj wants someone else to go for it. He picks his daughter, Mahi, from her school, but she's looking very upset. A boy in her class beat her by 1%, and she's not able to handle it. Her grandpa tries to stress on the importance of the journey rather than achieving the goal. It's soon time for Viraj to tell her a bedtime story. She chooses to imagine people she knows from her life as the characters. She patiently listens, but is disappointed that yet another story doesn't mention her mother. Viraj is distant and determined not to mention her at all. When Mahi refuses to have her medicines, he promises to tell her the story one day. But she needs to beat the boy Varun in her class to earn the story. Grandpa wants Viraj to know Mahi has become very curious. Since she's even asking him questions, he knows Viraj will eventually have to tell her the truth. Viraj is determined to ignore the topic and thinks there's a lot of time. He does all the household chores before a video call with the doctor. When he falls asleep on the couch, Mahi covers him with a blanket. He helps her get dressed for school. Mahi keeps studying hard and even helps Viraj with some work. She has trouble breathing, but Viraj always takes care of her. When some ladies gossip about Mahi's mother, Justin shuts them up. Viraj is always the most present parent, and even takes pleasure in the little things she does. When it's time for her exam, she gives Varun a rude look and starts writing. Viraj is back home after a long and tiring day with difficult clients. Mahi shows him that she came first in her class and beat Varun by 2%. He's proud and congratulates her. But he's also tired and wants to go for a shower. She asks him to come back soon, because it's time for him to tell her mother's story. He gets irritated when she keeps reminding him that he promised to do so. He angrily takes their dog Pluto out of her room. Grandpa wakes him up in panic because Mahi and Pluto are missing. Viraj rushes to her school, but gets stuck in traffic. While Mahi is walking Pluto, he starts running ahead. She chases him, but gets tired and asks someone to help. Yashna notices this and brings Pluto to her. She offers water and helps Mahi feel better. She informs Yashna about her fatal condition, which she pronounces as 65 roses. Everyone has told her she will not survive, but her dad is sure she will. She's not allowed to eat cotton candy, but when she's angry with him, she breaks that rule. She tries to cross the road with Pluto, but it's tough to hold on to Pluto's leash, and a truck comes in front of her. Yashna calls Viraj and sends him their location. She is chatting with Mahi when Viraj comes in angrily to scold her. Yashna introduces herself and informs him about what happened. When she saw the truck approaching, she ran to save Mahi. But the truck suddenly stopped and they both are safe. He thanks her for being there, but goes back to scolding Mahi. She has teamed up with Yashna and is only speaking to Viraj through her. When Viraj reminds Mahi she's not allowed cotton candy, Yashna informs him he's not allowed to break his promises. She thinks Mahi has worked very hard for a month to beat Varun, just to hear about her mom. Viraj promises to tell Mahi the story later, but Yashna claims they both can't trust his promises. He asks Yashna not to interfere in their personal matter, but she has also promised Mahi she will help her listen to the story, and can't break it. Viraj knows he has no choice, and finally gives in. His story is about a beautiful town in India, Coonoor. He gets off his bike to capture the perfect photo in the rain. This is the story of the first time he saw Mahi's mother, Varsha. But Mahi stops him midway and asks who she should imagine as her mother. He feels lost, so Yashna suggests Mahi can imagine her. For Viraj, it is love at first sight with Varsha. He is lost in her thoughts and starts following her around. One day, she approaches him to scold him for taking her pictures without permission. Varsha's younger brother and a shopkeeper also intervene, but he keeps smiling at her. She's pissed with his rude behavior and takes his camera away. Justin stops them and lets her know Viraj is an amateur photographer trying to make a career under a famous one. He assures her that all the photos are decent, and Viraj only needed them for his portfolio. Varsha feels bad when she checks the photos and apologizes to Viraj, but Viraj tells her he loves her. He claims it's love at first sight, and thinks he found his life story with her first photo. He can already imagine a future for them. She takes the camera again from him in frustration and walks away. He's not even upset about losing his camera, since he thinks it's safe with his future wife. Their boss, Mahendra, is giving them instructions when Justin notices Varsha there. They realize their boss is her uncle. Mahendra calls Viraj and asks him to help Varsha get some printouts. He apologizes for the other day, but claims he means what he said. She gives him his own camera to take prints of her photos. She wants him to know she doesn't believe in love at first sight, kids or marriage. She recalls the time her parents were fighting and she was comforting her brother. Her mom sent them to Coonoor so they could process their divorce. She gives him the prints of her photos and asks him to use them if it helps with his career. She is also willing to be friends with him if he gives up the idea of being in love with her. Her friendship is enough for him for a while. He starts hanging out with her a lot more. She has a very close circle, which doesn't even have place for Pluto. At dinner one day, Viraj asks her to come out so he can show her something. He has sneaked in the alcohol she asked for. When he's opening his bag, she spots a guitar and starts playing it. He is mesmerized by her voice and thinks people will go crazy if she sings on a stage. She wrote this song when she was very young, but her mother doesn't approve. They hear a couple fighting outside and decide to hide. A woman comes inside the room escorted by the staff. She is angry with her husband for flirting with someone. Their fight reminds Varsha of her own house and she gets very disturbed. Viraj closes her ears and helps her breathe to calm her down. When they notice someone is under the desk, Viraj runs away with her. He takes her to a safe place and runs in the opposite direction so the people chase him. When she's upset, Pluto comes to comfort her. She starts warming up to him and holds him in her arms. She also starts liking Viraj a lot more. Viraj is excited about finally buying his dream camera. He could only afford it after selling Pluto to a wealthy family. He thinks they will take good care of him. Varsha knows Pluto wants their love a lot more. She thinks that if they ever fall in love, Viraj will also leave her like this just because he can't afford to give her the life he wants. He asks her to not take this personally and reminds her she never liked Pluto. But she has heard enough and claims she's never coming back to Kunur. She goes to Mumbai to stay with her mother. After a few weeks, she notices Pluto in front of her. When she realizes Viraj got him back, she goes in for a hug. She scolds him for taking so long to come back to her. When he asks if they're still friends, she kisses him. As they're happy about reuniting, her mother watches them. She invites Viraj for a lunch. She thinks he's not good enough for Varsha since he doesn't have enough money. When it's time to pay the bill, she passes it to Viraj. She thinks if he can't even afford to pay for their lunch, he shouldn't be with Varsha. He excuses himself to check on Pluto for a bit while Varsha talks to her mom. She is determined to hate Viraj and thinks Varsha should only marry someone who is wealthy. She's also sure Viraj must have left by now because of the bill. But he comes back and informs them that the bill has been paid. He wants to be clear that he's not rich. He just paid his entire month's salary for their meal. He acknowledges that he's struggling now, but knows he can earn much more when he opens his own studio. He also wants Varsha to know her mother is right about him. He can't afford to give her the life she deserves. But he knows if she is with him, he can manage anything. When he asks her to marry him, Yashna is so engrossed in the story that she feels like saying yes to him. On their third wedding anniversary, Varsha dedicates a song to him. She remembers the time they got married and moved into a small house. Viraj soon sells his land to get a studio. But they're always happy and in love. As he keeps getting more work, they can soon afford a much bigger house. They are still happy 3 years into their marriage. But he suddenly wonders how their kids will look. Varsha reminds him she was clear about not wanting kids. She has been through a lot with her parents and is strongly against the idea. She feels like if something goes wrong, their kids will suffer. He gets irritated by her pessimism and regrets bringing up this topic. He claims he made a mistake by marrying her and slams the door. He regrets it as soon as he says it and comes in to apologize. He assures her he didn't mean it and is fine with not having kids. But Varsha reminds him that he managed to change her mind about love and marriage. She is willing to risk having a kid with him too, but she's scared. He assures her it will be the best decision of their lives. Yashna is also imagining herself as his wife and wants to know what happened next with her. Viraj reminds her he's talking about Varsha, but he claims she loved singing so much he left them. This doesn't make sense to Yashna. She doesn't believe that someone who loved him so much would just run away after giving birth. She's sure there's more to the story, but Viraj doesn't want to continue. When Mahi also asks if he left her mother, Viraj remembers that she is his priority. He sits down again to continue the story. Varsha gets pregnant and he makes sure to take care of her. He is excited to learn he has a daughter, but Dr. Ranjan wants to have a word. Mahi is born with cystic fibrosis, so she has been kept in an incubator. Varsha has been told she has a lung disease and won't survive. She's angry at Viraj for promising her that having a daughter would be a good decision. He brings Varsha home, but she's very mad at him. Varsha keeps crying and calls her mother to share something. Justin wakes Viraj up and asks him to take Varsha home. It's been 4 months since Mahi was born, and he wants Viraj to help Varsha feel normal again. As they're going home, Varsha feels numb and regrets everything. She wishes she had never met him. She even regrets giving birth, after which Mahi asks him to stop the story. She has heard enough and wants to go home. When Yashna tries to comfort her, she pushes her away. Viraj reminds her that Mahi was imagining Yashna as her mother. Yashna still asks for the rest of the story. After Varsha tells him she regrets everything, their car crashes. Varsha is thrown out of the car and Viraj tries his best to reach her. Viraj claims he has moved on after so many years and asks her not to worry. When Yashna gets home, there's a surprise party for her, but she's distracted and tries to get away. Viraj opens his laptop with the wallpaper of Varsha from his story, who looks just like Yashna. In his real story, Yashna is Varsha. After the accident, Viraj tries to meet her, but her mom doesn't let him in. She informs him that Yashna has forgotten everything about him and her parents' divorce. She has post-traumatic amnesia, and no one knows when she will get her memory back. In the present, Viraj scolds Pluto for making this happen. On the day Mahi goes to eat cotton candy, Pluto spots Yashna and started running towards her. Her mother informs Viraj that Yashna was unhappy and wanted a divorce from him. She thinks she has suffered a lot because of him and wants her to have a better life this time. He also remembers the time he went to find Mahi. He sees Yashna with her and remembers he decided to never get back in her life again. Justin opens the door to find Yashna looking for Mahi. When Viraj hears her, he takes her hand to get her out of the house. Yashna has researched Mahi's condition and is worried she doesn't have too long to live. Everyone has told Viraj the same thing for years. When they told him Mahi will never get out of the incubator, he started preparing her room at home. When they said she won't survive kindergarten, he paid her fees till 10th grade. He knows despite what people say, he will never let Mahi go so easily. Yashna gives him a bracelet she got for Mahi to protect her from the evil eye. She thinks Viraj needs it more because he protects her. She is eager to meet Mahi, but Viraj starts making some excuses. Mahi comes outside and apologizes to Yashna for being rude earlier. They decide to be friends again and Mahi hugs her. Yashna has a surprise planned for her and wants to meet for dinner. Mahi knows it's a holiday at school the next day and they're free to meet. Viraj takes out the bracelet she gave him, and is sure he can't let Yashna be a part of their life. He decides to take Mahi to a shoot in Goa that day. Mahi is upset she won't get to meet Yashna, but Viraj is determined. Grandpa thinks he's making a mistake, but Viraj can't let them meet again. He reminds him how upset Mahi got when she imagined Yashna as her mother. He knows she won't be able to take it if she finds out she's her real mother. Yashna keeps waiting for them at dinner, but they don't turn up. Viraj has already reached Goa. The next day, Yashna meets her fiancé, Dr. Aravind, and they're getting married in a week. Viraj knows about this too, and feels like they just need to keep their distance for a week. Mahi calls Yashna and informs her that they are in Goa. She is touched that Yashna remembers her birthday even if her own father doesn't. Yashna informs Aravind that she needs to leave for some urgent work. When he's done with the shoot, Viraj spots Yashna there and gets angry. When he's trying to confront her, he notices Mahi in a birthday dress. She thanks Viraj for organizing a party for her and not forgetting her birthday. Yashna gestures to him and brings a ukulele as a gift from his side. As Mahi happily cuts the cake with Yashna, Neha approaches Viraj. He is worried about Yashna suspecting something, but Neha assures him. Viraj replaced Neha with the brother in his story about his wife, so Yashna thinks there's no similarity. Neha knows how Yashna feels about Mahi, and requests Viraj to let them hang out. As Yashna joins him on the beach, Viraj thanks her for helping with Mahi's birthday. She claims she had a similar accident like his 6 years ago, and doesn't remember half her life. She still doesn't regret it because she has people around who love her. She is curious to know what his wife looked like. When he claims he doesn't have photos and walks off, she taunts him for forgetting her. He comes closer and starts describing her beauty, which could easily melt his heart. He mentions her wearing a black sari and how good she looked in a nose ring. He also describes how she parted her hair to get natural curls. She kisses him like she used to, but this makes things awkward and he leaves. He is confused about whether he triggered her memories or she actually feels something for him. When she wakes up the next day, she decides to dress up exactly the way he described his wife. Everyone turns back to look at her, and even Viraj can't take his eyes off her. She asks for his permission to take Mahi away. Since Yashna is missing from the family lunch, her mom makes some excuse about her getting wedding jitters. Yashna has tucked Mahi in bed when Viraj comes to take her away. He doesn't listen to her protests about staying with her for one night. He claims he doesn't want Mahi to get attached when she won't be in their lives. She still thinks Mahi needs a mother figure in her life. Viraj is outright rude this time when he claims he doesn't need to take parenting advice from her. He feels bad about how he treated her, and Neha asks him to fix it. He finds her at a bar having shots. He drinks the whole bottle and starts singing and dancing. As he dances with other girls, Yashna gets jealous and keeps drinking more. She eventually joins him for a dance, but he moves back as soon as they get too close. She is disappointed about his dance with the girls since she took him for a romantic guy. He wonders why they're fighting since they won't remember anything the next day. When she claims she never forgets anything, Viraj starts laughing. He makes fun of all the people close to her she trusts. He thinks she only cares about shopping and getting married this week. As they start fighting again, Mahi hears some commotion. Yashna falls asleep on his hand, and soon enough, he sleeps too. Mahi joins them and asks Yashna if she will stay with them forever. In a flashback, Yashna asks Viraj what they will name their daughter. Viraj remembers the girl who gave him Pluto back was Mahima, and decides to name her Mahi. Dr. Ranjan informs him that they have a lung for the transplant. But he's worried about Mahi's age and the complications of the surgery. He thinks no doctor will be willing to take the risk. Viraj is determined to make this happen because he knows how tough it is to get lungs. He has faith she will survive and asks him to prepare for the operation. Yashna informs Viraj about the dream she had about Mahi's name. She feels very confused since she thinks she is imagining herself as Varsha. She keeps dreaming about details like this and thinks they are related to her accident. But she is sure she has feelings for him, and asks if he likes her too. Before he can reply, Arvind's brother Ashok interrupts them. He takes Yashna away for a surprise. Arvind has arrived there so they can get married in Goa. Justin thinks that since Yashna has confessed her feelings for him, they can be happy together. Mahi keeps calling out to Yashna, but she can't hear her because of the crowd. When she starts running towards her, Viraj stops her. Yashna's mom realizes Mahi is her granddaughter, but still doesn't let Yashna meet her. The preparations for her wedding have started, but Yashna keeps trying to call Viraj. Mahi opens the gift she gave her. Yashna gives up and calls her dad to let him know she's in love with Viraj. Mahi wants to meet Yashna to ask her something, but her wedding is in a day, and Viraj wants them to keep their distance. They're also leaving from Mumbai the next day for a doctor's appointment. Viraj finds her and Pluto missing again the next morning. He is sure she must be at Yashna's wedding. Ashok recognizes Viraj from the beach and offers to take him to Yashna. Mahi finally finds Yashna, but her mom stops her from going to the room. Ashok and his friends take Viraj to a place where they start beating him up. Yashna's mother reminds Justin that Viraj promised to stay away from her. Justin assures her they're doing their best and asks her to stay quiet in front of Mahi. She refuses to believe Mahi came so far to find Yashna without knowing anything. She claims Yashna won't be able to handle it if she learns her daughter is dying. She informs Mahi that Yashna is her mother and asks her to stay away from her. Aravind stops Ashok and his friends and apologizes to Viraj. He informs him he's marrying his ex-wife. He doesn't mind him being there, but warns him against doing anything to ruin his wedding. Pluto finds Yashna and tries to take her to Mahi. Viraj wonders if his love is not good enough for Mahi. She hugs him and promises she will never leave him again. Justin informs him that Yashna's mom told Mahi everything, even if he asked her not to. Pluto leads Yashna to them and she feels Viraj is there because he loves her. She claims she will leave everything for him if he feels the same way. He pretends to be angry with her and claims she shouldn't flirt with him right before getting married. He thinks she likes to run away from her problems. Yashna insists she loves him and asks Mahi if she imagines her as her mother. Mahi claims she used to, but now she doesn't want Yashna in her life. Viraj causes a scene at the wedding by throwing the table and beating someone up. He sits down to let Yashna's mother know he will not tolerate anything against his daughter. He even threatens to tell her secret to Yashna. As Yashna cries in a corner, Aravind watches her. When they're leaving for the airport, Mahi loses consciousness and they take her to the hospital. Even Grandpa turns up to tend to her. When Yashna is about to get married to Aravind, Grandpa turns up at the wedding. He is Yashna's father, who has been living with Viraj since the accident. As people burst crackers, he covers her ears like Viraj did earlier. He thinks she shouldn't marry Aravind when she's in love with Viraj. It seems to him like she has given up. He asks her to prove to Viraj that she's not like his wife. He informs her about Mahi being in the ICU and asks her to decide what she wants. After this, Yashna insists she needs to leave. Aravind knows this is about Viraj and wants Yashna to know his wife suffered a lot because of him. When he claims she wanted a divorce, Yashna refuses to believe this. She doesn't know how she knows this, but she is sure Viraj's wife didn't want a divorce. Aravind can tell she still loves him and asks her to go. Her mom scolds him for letting her go, but he knows she lied about Yashna wanting a divorce. He can tell Yashna never stopped loving him and doesn't want to marry someone who doesn't want to be with him. When she comes to scold her husband, he thinks Yashna will never find a better guy than Viraj. After the accident, he knew Viraj and Mahi needed him more than Yashna. He informs her of how good a father Viraj is and how he does everything to make sure Mahi survives. He knows Viraj can easily convince Yashna to be with him, but he has some morals. He reminds her that Yashna fell for Viraj again without knowing about him. He knows they failed as a couple, but requests her to not fail Yashna as her mother. When Yashna reaches the hospital, Viraj has almost given up hope and feels scared. Yashna assures him that she's sure Mahi will do everything to get back to him. She still needs him to be tough and promises that Mahi will be fine. Aravind follows Ashok to the hospital and learns that Mahi has negligible chances of survival. The doctor claims they can't operate on her because they need a lot of specialists for such a risky surgery. All of Aravind's friends are the best doctors in the country in their field. While Ashok is a general surgeon, Aravind is also a neurosurgeon. He knows they can all operate on Mahi and save her. Yashna reminds Aravind he saved her many years ago and asks him to save Mahi too. Before the surgery, Yashna tries to talk to Mahi. She assures her that she will stay with them forever. Mahi slowly whispers to her that she wants to be a singer like her mother. Yashna asks Mahi to come back, smiling from the operation theater. In exchange for that, she promises to teach her the best song ever. As they wait for Mahi, Yashna hopes she had met Viraj and Kunor and given birth to her. Mahi watches them before her operation begins. As everyone eagerly waits, someone opens the door into the future, where a grown-up Mahi is giving a beautiful performance.